Today on Off the Hinges, relax, pour yourself a drink, and unwind from your week as I take the next 20 minutes to answer your questions and share stories about this week's trade. I'm joined by a special guest, and I have my whiskey in hand. I'm so glad you made it. Are you ready? Let's slide into the vault. Welcome to the vault. I have this lady with me. I'm going to take a sip of whiskey. Tell him your name.
Laura Marano.
That's my wife. Resilience, we're going to jump right in. A lot of you had a lot of questions. We have a lot to share. We're probably going to do a lot of laughing. I hope you're ready to relax, unwind, and hopefully just recharge a little bit. So first question, what are you thankful for this week?
I think I'm most thankful for the fact that especially our older two have done such a good job adapting to a new schedule. Arya also started playing soccer this week, and she does not speak Norwegian like Alessia does, but she tends to just jump right into those groups and make friends, even if there might be a small language barrier, and never seems to bother her for more than a couple of minutes.
And by the way, it's called soccer. Be resilient, be strong. Don't give in. It's not football, it's soccer. Don't waver. Thank you.
It is football here.
But it's still soccer. Okay. I'm going to die on that hill. Number 2, what is something you learned this week?
I learned about where to place different verbs in sentences for Norwegian structure and proper grammar. Yes, that is what I'm working on right now and learning.
Fantastic. How do you desire to grow heading into this weekend?
I was hoping
She already told me the answer to this. I have to laugh. Just please give it to him. I'm going to take a drink.
I was hoping to gain at least 2 or 3 inches in height.
Yeah. I mean, you can grow in mind, body, or spirit. So physically, growing in body would be great. Our daughters remind us a lot that they probably won't be tall. It's cool. They love us so much. And we love them even more. First from Lynn's. Shout out to Lynn's. Rock and roll. We love you. You said, when are you coming to Stuttgart? Do you want to answer that for Lynn's? Are we going to humor that?
Soon.
Yeah, soon.
You have a house to stay at now, so...
Yeah, first and foremost, calm down. You left us. So let's just get that straight. We went nowhere. A little bit offended at the question. Probably soon. We'll talk about it and get back to you. Karina will call you. Next question from Molly. What is your favorite date?
I don't know what that means. If she means like favorite date that we have together or favorite date that we've had.
I guess it's up to us to answer, however, because Molly, you left it a little open-ended. Way to ask an open-ended question. You should be a coach. Laura's going to answer it however she wants, I guess.
I'd say anything that involves us going to dinner, and then now also involves doing a floating sauna. And doesn't matter what order.
Those are cool. And also, is this a test? Is the right answer supposed to be anything with you? If that's the answer, then you got it. Anything with you, Molly. That's our favorite date. That we haven't had it yet. You haven't asked us, but yeah, maybe that'll be our favorite. We'll find out. From Bobby Sue, she said, how do you navigate the uncertainty of living in the life of a Marine, being moved to different places, future uncertainty?
I think that one of the most helpful pieces of advice that I was given when Josh had just started the basic schools, I went to this panel of wives, that had many years of experience, and they had mentioned whenever you do get a chance to add to your education or your skill set or something like that, and it's something that works for you, then try to do that so that you can keep your options open. I think that that's very helpful because it is not always so easy to just stop the job that you trained many years for. So I think that that is very helpful. Of course, praying about what is next and making big decisions and all of that is a really big part of our lives and what we do together. But I think for me personally, it's important for me to keep some sort of skill set going too. So that I think that that answers the question.
I think it does. Something that we've always done starting at the start. We've always made sure, even when we were dating before we got married, that we were aligned on three non negotiables. And that was how we viewed our faith, how we viewed our family, and what that could look like if we were blessed to have kids, which now we have them, and then our finances. So being able to communicate and have agreement on that as a married couple, I think has really shored up resilience in times where my day job has taken us all over the place, and Laura's absolutely a lifelong learner. She said I'm a physical therapist. Um, she's pretty humble, but she's a doctor of physical therapy. So having a terminal degree in that, and then being able to put that on pause as our family gets moved around because of what we do together. Yeah, she just never stops learning, and she always has a good spirit about it. And it's really important that we were aligned in our relationship from day one on how we viewed things spiritually, physically, how we would raise our children, what would be important. It all plays into that. And if we didn't have alignment there, I don't think we would have been as successful in the face of, let's just put it pretty honestly, a lot of shit that comes your way in life. So Jeanette asked, how are you intentionally growing resilience in your three tiny warrior ladies slash purple minions? I added that last part. What do you think?
I think there's a lot of things that we've done in order to do that. Honestly, there are some things that we haven't had to really try at. For example, we moved here to Norway, and 2 days later, we threw our child
Not
in
physically. We didn't throw our. I'm sorry. I have to interrupt. We didn't throw.
tossed.
Gently nudged. There wasn't any abuse. No abuse of children. I promise. Phew. Please continue.
We were still coming off jet lag, and Aria started her first day of school here.
Yeah.
Um, So like yeah, I mean there are some things that have just happened that have not necessarily been us intentionally building resilience, more just it kind of there here we are and this is what we're doing. Wherever we live, we do try to find a strong church home and community, and now we have done that here. And then also the girls are involved in Awana, the Christian fellowship, and memorizing scripture, and of course we are doing that at home, but then they have the additional
Mm-hmm.
uh, practice there. And then, in addition to that, I would say that we have put them in uncomfortable situations, lots of them.
Yep.
And we have done it with, of course, being supportive, but also putting them there and giving them the ability to adapt kind of on their own. And
Yeah.
I, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but
Yeah. Jeanette, I do have a thought, but it ties in nicely with something one of my old Marine non-commissioned officers, Pat, asked me, and I'm gonna save my response to you for when I respond to Pat because I think they align neatly. This next question is for a friend of a friend, and this friend asked for this person to remain unnamed. But this is directly for Laura. And coming from a woman who's going through a lot with her family and children, she wanted to know, could you talk about a season when resilience felt especially difficult to execute in daily life, and how you reflect on that season now that you have some distance from it? What was the personal growth? Did it change you? And did it change your perspective?
yeah, so the first one that comes up or comes to mind is when you were deployed and I was pregnant with Karina, and then I had a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old at home. Plus, I was working full time, and I was so sick when Josh came home from when you came home from that deployment that I did not make it to pick you up, which was I was not happy about. Michelle Ryan was there to stay with me, but then you guys kept pushing your return time, and then I was just struggling so bad. I was coughing so much that I tore my intercostals and my ribs while I was pregnant with Karina. But the big part about that, and yes, I didn't feel very resilient during that whole 6 months, but the I think the big takeaway I had from that whole 6 months is that it's important to ask people for help, even if you feel like you can do everything. And even I remember thinking about it before, knowing that I was pregnant in September, knowing Josh was about to leave, and then knowing we were going to have all these different factors. And I was like, it's fine. I can do this. It'll be all right. Well, it wasn't. And that was also during a time where they continuously were closing the school, closing Alessia's preschool off and on for
Mm-hmm.
COVID or not or whatever. And I felt like I was missing so much work and I was a terrible employee. And the there were so many wives that I could give shout outs to that came in and stepped up for me. And so I think that that was a big takeaway for me is just thinking that I could do a lot of things by myself that I couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a reason why God has certain people around you at certain times. And
And also, if you're curious, if you pick up on body language, if you ever noticed these hand gestures that Laura makes, she 100% got that from Schitt's Creek. Fun fact. For Laura from John Epps. And side note for the viewers, John Epps is going to be joining us in just a couple of weeks. And he is a fantastic man. You really need to stay tuned because you're going to have two Marines, him and me, that are the best of brothers with both a lot of combat experience and just life experience. And we're going to be talking about love. So if you want to see two dudes just get down and dirty about what it means to have love in your life is a very important trait, stay tuned. And he is fantastic. But John asks, for the ultra, all caps, badass Laura, you and my wife, Lindsay, who is also an ultra badass, and we love you, LB, you and my wife came up in a much different time than today's younger crowd. What advice do you think the younger generation of military wives today needs to hear and remember? Great question, dude.
it's a great question. I think that it's important for military spouses to know that there are some times when you're going to be able to help a whole lot more, and sometimes when you're going to need the help. And so, if you have, for example, a 3 and 5 year old at home and you're pregnant and you're working full time, you're probably going to not be able to be as helpful to others. I'm not saying you cannot, but maybe that, and your spouse is deployed, maybe that's a time where you're going to need more help. But maybe when your kids are 16 and 14 and they've become really good chefs, or they have this new skill that they love to practice. Maybe there are spouses in the community that just really need somebody to cook for them a couple days a week or something like that. But now you have these older kids that can help with things like that. So I think it's just important to know that it's okay if you cannot volunteer for every single event that comes your way. There's going to be seasons where you can and seasons where you cannot. And I think that if anybody tells you that it's different than that, I'm not sure they're being completely truthful, because there's so many ebbs and flows in life anyway. And then there's, of course, with the added, um, I don't know, factor of being a military spouse, then you're going to have a lot of those.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the first thing that came to mind for me.
For Laura, from Micah. And this, just really quick disclaimer, this is supposed to take a little bit of a vibe, I've been told, of Between Two Ferns. And this is coming from my sister. So you can just, I'm no Zach Galifianakis, but just be prepared for whatever this question is. Tell us about a time that your unique experience with resiliency was helpful to someone else. And when you knew for sure that I was your favorite sister in law. So I guess you have to answer both of those. Um, Over to you. Thanks, Micah.
I do know that there are many people that I know, outside of the military that cannot believe that I've gone through these deployments or had Aria without Josh or things like that. And also keep in mind that I do have, even though we've always lived very far away from family, my parents did come in when Josh was deployed for a few weeks and watched the kids. And then I also, my mom was there when Aria was born, and, Josh, we couldn't even physically see him or anything. There have been people who have told me that when they've been going through certain hardships in their lives, that they can't stop thinking about, oh, what you had these 6 months where you didn't have Josh around, and then you had a baby, or you had these 6 months where you were pregnant and then you had two kids by yourself, or you moved to Norway and you had to adapt to this whole new culture and you couldn't do your job. And these are just things that I don't think I could do. And I think that for me, when I hear, I don't think I could do that, I just never could do that, I'm like, but I think that you actually could, because you've never been put in this situation. And I think that I also always bring up that when they say, if I was in this situation, I couldn't do it. Like, but if your husband was in the military, I'm pretty sure you would just do that. I don't have a specific answer. I can just think of a few off the top of my head responses like
Mm-hmm.
that. And then knowing that Micah was my favorite sister in law, I feel like I'm not allowed to say that.
Yeah, I feel like you're setting us up for like really bad family feuds. And Jeanette, we're so sorry that Micah did this first and foremost, but you know her, so this should come as no surprise to you. Um, Micah, you just need to go like take a lap or something. I don't know. You are the favorite younger sister-in-law, like my dad used to
Named Micah.
name Micah. That's you. You're the one and only. Like my dad used to tell me, my son, my favorite son, my only son. So because you are one of a kind, you are our favorite one of a kind, Micah. That's a good answer. Good job. Whew. We dodged that one. Nice.
Safe.
Maybe. I don't know. I feel like not. Okay. From Linz. Back to Linz with a real question, not just about Stuttgart. Um, yeah, thank you for a real question, because of course we're going to come see you. We love you. What tools or resources have helped you stay connected during military separations?
This is for both of us, right?
Yeah, sure. But we'll just say over to you. And what tools or resources for the two of us can you think of that was helpful?
I think that especially your last battalion fro, is that still what she would be
A
called?
family readiness officer.
Yeah, Gisela.
Yep, there's a person at units for those that aren't military that if you're deployed, whatever the spouse or family is there, they help connect
Mm-hmm.
and keep them informed, keep them engaged. So that's context.
If you don't have a lot of those things set, then it can cause a lot of stress, which is totally unnecessary when you
Mm-hmm.
can actually fix that beforehand. So that is what I think of.
If you find yourself in a job or in a life season where you absolutely are required and you have no control over it, and you find yourself ebbing and flowing in and out of your family's life just because that's what happens. If you're the one that's having to leave the family behind, like let's say that I was, be thoughtful and creative and plan that out. Think past the end of your nose. It's really healthy with children to set family traditions, family movie night and pizza on Fridays. And as much as the stay behind parent can continue with those things in the absence of, let's say, me, the military member, going on a deployment, it's really healthy for the kids to have things to look forward to that are a part of the family, that even if maybe one of you isn't there, it's still a tradition. It's still sort of something that memorializes the importance of family and unity and cohesion. So at a time where it might feel a little bit to a small child like that's getting ripped apart a little bit, it's a reminder that it's not. Last one from Pat, and I'll tie this back into what Jeanette asked. What is the difference between leadership in the military and leadership within a relationship? And man, thanks for the tough question. Whew. I'll start by saying, what is the vision that you have for your life? And that goes to Pat, that goes to all of you. And if you don't know how to answer that, you need to be able to. Individually, within a family, corporately. And when I say vision, to be very specific on that, because we're not here to talk in theory. This is practical. This is life. To be resilient, you need to know what your purpose is and your identity, which we talked about last week. What is your desired future state or your desired future self? So, who am I? Why am I here? And who am I hoping to become? That's my vision for my life. And the steps between are the action steps you should be taking every day. This behind us is very intentionally placed because Laura and I have our own vision for ourselves with our careers and individuals. We are our own people and we talk about those things, but I'm not going to influence Laura's purpose and try to dictate what that is. And she doesn't do that to me because we are individuals with certain gifts in our own life and we honor that. But together as a family, we've come up with this and we spent a lot of time doing this together and we talked about it. Like what's important, and this goes right by our table. I just put it here so that you could see it. And it's the Marano family vision. And if you're listening to a podcast and you're curious what it is, you have to go over to foundational-coaching.com, go to the Vault tab on top, and you can watch this video so you can read the vision. So there's your plug. But all of these things, Pat, are what we have decided very simply matters to us. If we're known by nothing else, what are the things that matter most? Because if everything's important, it's really hard to make anything important. So you should take time to identify what's my purpose? What are the things I want to strive to achieve daily? And it shouldn't be a simple win. It shouldn't be a quick win. It should be something you strive to actually change your life into. Because these things aren't easy for us, man. But it's who we want to be and it's how we want to be known. And then every day we sit down and we ask our girls, like at dinner, we have intentional meals together and we ask them how they're growing, how they're learning. And I might not ask them these specific verbatim questions, but every conversation that Laura and I have over dinner together with them, we're sharing together how in our heads, in our hands, and in our hearts, we're growing and we're learning and we're trying to become more aligned to our vision. So that's a really important way to build resilience in the girls is to give them a very deliberate spoken identity of who they are as a part of this family and why them as an individual is really important, but them as a member of the Marano family, when someone says their name, if someone says Alessia Marano, what weight does that last name hold, if anything? And what pretext comes with that? What reputation precedes you when people hear of you? That's really important. I would say, Pat, specifically for leadership when it comes to the difference between relational and military, maybe in practice it looks different because obviously I'm not having my daughters like low crawl and go to live fire ranges. So it's a little different. They would probably love it because they're very rock and roll. But I think theoretically and in the framework of it as the leader, to me, it looks like this. So it starts with self leadership. And in action, that looks like loving yourself well and having self discipline. Because we mentioned last week a lot of who we are and a lot of our identity that we're teaching to those around us, whether it's in an organization or individually, it's caught before it's taught. So if I can't love myself well, if Laura can't love herself well and have the discipline to do the things that we need to do, how can we ever expect our daughters to model that and to love themselves or to love others or to have the discipline to just carry on with daily tasks of life without adversity? Then enter a challenge or an opposition, things that maybe require resilience, even in the smallest form. If you can't do it well when nobody's watching, without someone in your face, how can you expect you and your children to do it when there's actually confrontation? So I think it starts with yourself. And that's not cliche, it's very honest. And then being able to communicate your vision and your words through actions. For my girls, to Jeanette, what that looks like is really simply showing them and telling them that there might be people that are smarter than your dad, that are physically faster or stronger than your dad, but nobody will love you more and nobody will outwork your father. Really simply put, it's your presence, your posture, your purpose, and your projection that help shore up resiliency, whether it's for yourself, for your family, for your team. So your presence, you have to show up, man, to be resilient with and for each other. We have to show up every day for our girls. We can't just decide to stay in bed and not get up and help them get out the door to school. Like, you physically have to show up, and you have to show up for life. So if you think you're going to be resilient and you're not willing to show up and pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you're going to suck and you're going to crumble. Posture, I would say you have to be humble. So the posture that you enter that space with whatever adversity you're challenged with, um, you have to be humble. And I would say you have to have somewhat of a joyful posture. That doesn't mean it's happy, but I think you need a strong root in contentment, and you need to find out what actually brings you joy. And you need to add some levity to some really tough situations. Your purpose, I would say, just be you. As a leader, whoever you are, other people can be themselves. You need to be you. Whatever your style is, whatever your gifts are, don't try and change that. I'm not going to try and be a different dad to my girls, and I'm not going to try and be a different Marine officer that I'm not, because it just doesn't work and people will see through it. So just be yourself and bring your identity into the picture as a supplement, and don't try to conform to other people. And then projection is really important, because I think strength is super relevant when you're trying to be a resilient person. Strength in your own identity, strength together, Laura and I in a marriage, and the way you project that matters endlessly. Because for our little girls, not just physical strength, probably more a deep rooted strength of my heart and will and resolve. They need to know that if they needed their daddy for something, or if they needed their mommy for something, they would have a strong person by their side. You cannot project weakness and expect to overcome anything resiliently. And it's not just for those that you serve or support. I would also challenge and offer you that if you're going to face opposition and if you're facing a threat, you need to pose yourself as a strong and hard target. So people are going to attack you. People are going to attack the marriage, the family, the children. And you can be kind and calm and humble and even keeled, but you better be strong. Because if you put out a signal of weakness for yourself or for your team or for your family when they need you most, and when you need yourself the most, you're going to crumble. So no one, regardless of the ones you love and support or the ones that confront you, no one should ever doubt your strength and your resolve. So you should project that strength, and you should build bridges with the relationships that matter the most in your life. I think your presence, posture, purpose, and projection of who you are is really important as a leader, and that shouldn't change from relationships to military to executive C-suite level. I think it's just humanity in its life. As we close out resilience, over to you. Any last thoughts for our listeners?
I completely forgot to mention jujitsu as building resilience, and I didn't think about it until you mentioned all of those things that actually do tie into jujitsu, which we've had our two girls involved in for the last year,
Mm-hmm.
about a year. And we have noticed an evolution of our girls with overcoming, the tougher opponents, especially our oldest one, and just the difference of just that whole attitude, emotions, managing them, everything being a little bit better in this last year. So that was another one that came to mind that I didn't mention. But jujitsu does. I remember Jeanette actually telling me that it was so much more than just being a tough, good athletic
Mm-hmm.
activity. It did teach them so much about discipline and resiliency and
Right.
all of that. So I forgot to mention that part.
Yeah, any way that you can connect mind, body, and spirit in a challenge for your kids to teach them in a simple way where they can fail and it's not going to actually hurt them, but make them have the discipline to do those things, do it. Anytime you can do that for yourself, do it. And Laura and I do a lot of things together, hiking or going on endurance training things together. And it sounds like a short little quip or a little cliche, but it's not. Whenever I look at you and we're rucking and I say strong back, tough feet, soft heart, there's a reason for that. Because to be resilient as a person and as a team, as a leader, you have to be able to enter into a space that's hell for a lot of people. And it's not just a physically strong back. You need to be able to physically and emotionally or spiritually or mentally be able to shoulder a load with and for someone. They're going to need you and you're going to need someone else. So how you build that mindset up, sure, physical pain is a good way to like train the mind and the body to push through, but you have to be ready to have a strong back to help carry someone else's load. You're going to need it and you're going to need them. So do it. Tough feet, just that symbolizes to me that someone with a tough leathery foot is not afraid to like go the extra mile and walk to wherever you're at to meet you wherever you're at because you're that important to them and they're going to be by your side. So it means you get off your ass, you put in the work, and you walk to other people to take care of them when they need you the most. And then a soft heart is just that. I don't know anyone that when they need someone by their side runs to someone who's hard-hearted and closed-minded. So we want a soft heart, not a hard one, and we want tough feet, not soft feet, and we want strong backs, not weak spines. So resiliency looks a lot like just hard work because it is. And next week, I'm going to have one of my dearest brothers, Fred, and Fred's going to talk to us about teamwork. But this whole idea of resiliency coming off the heels of humility and identity, I promise you, teamwork is what's going to bind it all together. And a community of people around you is what's going to matter most. So thankful that Laura's here with us tonight. I love you. Cheers to you.
Cheers.
Skål. Televisix to our Estonian friends. Whatever you're rocking with, we love you. Cheers.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Off the Hinges. Don't forget to follow Foundational Coaching on your favorite social media platforms. Kick off your Saturday with me tomorrow morning at Coffee and Reflections on Substack, where I'll share my deepest reflections and most personal stories on the weekly virtue. I'm honored to be a part of your story today, and I'm proud of your growth, my friend. I can't wait for our next time together, exploring the vault.